Now I've thought about this. I wanted to leave this picture a little while because I needed time to think about what it might need doing. By and large, I quite like it. Even the sort of unfinished look in these areas I quite find satisfactory. I might come back in though and do a few things. I'm going to maybe fix up some of this overly white area. I might add a little bit of detail in there, and I might actually start introducing some really pure colours into it. There is a bit of pure colouring like in up here, but I'd like to see some extra really strong colours, because otherwise it's a very, very muted, and strong colours can actually help a bit. Now the first step is going to be just working on some of these edges, I think, and fixing up little problems like that. Just get rid of our marks. Just putting a bit of shadow, just increasing the contrast between the head and the background a bit. Working on the edge, it was too intense, that light. Still having problems under that neck. Yeah, I'm going to use the drawing to try to fix them a bit better anyway. At this stage it's still mainly about what it always is in the last stage of a painting, and that's bringing in details, highlights, emphasis in the dark, tidying up mistakes. You probably notice how sharp and brutal sometimes the edges in egg tempera get. It's often a good idea to work over them. I'll do some of that later on, and soften the contrast of the edge with its surround. You do that by making an intermediate tone between across the edge. All these little details. I like doing stippling a fair bit actually in egg tempera. You'll see some egg tempera artists do a fair bit of stippling. Some do a very short hatching. It's somewhat inevitable to have to do it actually in parts of egg tempera paintings, particularly towards finalising it. You can never get much of making changes. Here I'm doing that intermediate shading along the edge. So it's just a slightly darker colour than the light area, applied to the light area. Again, doing it along the shoulder. It just softens the transition. Takes away the hardness of the whole thing. I'm using a bright red glaze to just emphasise the blood in the ears. It's quite okay to keep going with glazes in egg tempera. You can enhance colour and then take it away and then enhance it again. Here I'm testing in this point here. I'm testing for I want to put strong colour here, a lime green colour, and I'm just testing to see how it dries, because they go on light like this, and at this speed you'll be able to see how it dries. It's pretty close to being the same tonality as the background, still a bit light maybe, but that's not too bad, it's showing up. That's a way of testing how it will look when it dries. So I'm taking a reddish colour, putting it on there and looking at against the area I want to put it. I'm hoping that it'll sort of dry more or less a similar tone. As you'll see, it doesn't really work out in this one. Some parts have already dried and it's quite light. While you're waiting for one area to dry, you can move on to other areas. That's the whole method of moving quickly in egg tempera. And not a bad way of painting anyway. That stippling I did is being too bright. I could always go back and either remove it with water, or I could glaze over it. Here I'm testing tonality again on areas. It becomes fairly crucial when you get to a stage of trying to fix some of the sort of harsh and sharp edges to get the tonality correct. And to do that, you need to do test samples to see how it's going to dry, what you've mixed up. It's very hard to judge. After a while you get better at it, but never perfectly. Whoops, yeah, I touched that area, but I had put a red glaze over that. Didn't seem to record it for some reason. In a way there, I'm just redrawing. I'm drawing with the dark colour, and while it's still wet, I sort of like blend it a little bit. But it does mean you have to work incredibly fast to get those blends. I'm using stippling again up in there with a sort of just a pure lemon yellow, cobalt yellow. It just enlivens an area to have these bright colours, pure colours in them, and stippling sort of like adds a sort of glittering effect. There's lots of texture happening in the background, so I'm just adding to the texture by stippling. Trying to push that darkness down a bit further. A few more details coming in. Now I've also I had done some strokes that weren't recorded about on the jumper. I just put in some light strokes of grey, just to produce a sort of lighting effect on that shoulder. When this sort of painting is finished, you've got two options. You can leave it as it is and maybe sort of varnish it if you want, which will make it look like an oil painting, or you can sort of just wait for 4 months and then sort of polish it by hand, which will give it a slight sheen. Here's the paintings. That's the first version early on. I like this version actually. There's the second stage. And coming up the final stage.